Hey, everybody, welcome to the podcast, new and current listeners alike. In this week's episode, we talk about do the kids come first? And my biggest takeaway from this conversation we had was the importance of staying united with your spouse.
Yeah, and something that jumped out to me as we were having the conversation was we need to set up boundaries for our children to keep the marriage healthy. So tune in to hear the full episode.
All right. So, topic of the conversation I want to have with you today is do the kids come first? Right. And as you were mentioning, we have not a unique point of view, but maybe not so traditional, right?
Right.
Where when we got married, there was a child for both of us already, which makes this conversation interesting. Um, but mostly, what I want to talk about is with as important as it is to make our attempts to raise our children the right way, is it necessary to put them first before our marriage?
Oh, you want me to answer that?
I mean, what are your thoughts?
uh, yeah, my thoughts on that are no. Um, your wife should come first. Well, circle back. Honestly, you should come first.
E
Um, I know we have an issue, or I'll say I have an issue with that. But it's more so being secure in who you are and continue to learn and grow and try to achieve the things that you want to be a better person. So then you can serve your wife and if you have kids, your family well. That's kind of where I start. If you're as healthy as you can be and you're striving for healthiness, then that benefits everyone else, and that makes you the best version. So that is kind of one aside. But for this topic, I think you definitely have to put your spouse before your kids, which I know is hard at times, but the that is really we're talking about marriage here.
Right.
That is the way to have the healthiest marriage that you can is by putting them first.
Yeah.
But back to you, what are your thoughts?
I mean, my thought is absolutely no. But like you said, at times it does become very difficult, right? And I'm not quite there in that realm that you are just yet. I know your daughter has a lot going on. Um, my daughter has just gotten into gymnastics, right? And there's obviously the school thing and all that, but uh, I would say, even though I have 3 kids, I probably have it a little bit easier at the moment. And there's, a lot of different parameters that make that the case. But, um, man, they can't come first. Is my thought on it. And if I were to just break it down to one simple reason, I don't think that a marriage could really be as successful as its potential if you are putting anything in front of your your spouse other than God, right? Now you did mention that you should come first, right? And now by you, if it's a man talking, the man, if it's a woman talking, the woman, right? And that's a
Mhm.
very good point. I feel like it's also a different conversation, but it does very much tie into this. Um, if you're not healthy, like you said, and let's just go like with on the mental route, you you can't really be of full service to your family, right?
Right.
And I don't know, maybe I want to say it's a tough thing to wrap your head around because even me, right? I think to myself like I'm here to serve my wife, I'm here to serve my children, and to have that thought makes me think that all of that comes before me, right? And we walk through life with that thought and taking actions to that effect as well, right? I'm
Hmm.
gonna set my needs on the back burner to make sure they're good, right? And it can become a lot sometimes, man. So being conscious of that is huge. But yeah, back to the kids coming first, man. Like, is is there any healthy scenario you can think of where you could imagine a married couple just always putting the kids first?
You said a healthy scenario?
Right.
Um, I don't know, because I don't know everyone's scenario. But if you think about anything that could happen, whether it be just the busyness of children's schedules, school, um, even a tragedy happens to a child or something like that, where, um, or, any type of disability or anything like that, right? Someone is still, the parents still then would become like, they're still giving to the kids. They're still caregiving if need be. They're still teaching. They're still growing. And that weighs on a person.
Yeah.
So there is still support that is going to be need for whoever the caregiver is, because they're pouring out, whether it's, you know the stay-at-home parent, like they're pouring over and over into these kids. If you're caring for a child with a disability, you're caretaking, you're doing all those things. So you're still a person, like that caregiver is still a person, and that person still has needs.
Right.
So the spouse really has to be cognizant of that, and try to make them see, like, I still see you as you, not just the mother of our kids or the father of our kids or the Uber driver for our kids or the caretaker for our child or our children. um so that's why I say I can't see a scenario where it's healthy. I see where it's like it would be the right thing to do to pour a lot of the resources into the kids, but
Right.
the spouse who is not the primary caregiver, or if you're, both sharing it, you have to always remember, hey, like this is a person, like they have needs, and this is the person I married. And for us to be have a successful marriage, like we have to take time together. I have to let them take time for themselves to recharge, but we also have to make each other still know that we love each other, we see each other, and we want to grow something together as the two of us.
Yeah. And real quick, let's give a shout out to the single moms. You just had me thinking about what my mother must have had to go through in order to raise me and my brother single handedly,
Mhm.
right? We talk about all the support that is needed for a marriage to work, right? And all these things. And the best case scenario we're talking about in order to raise children. Single moms, man. Like, wow. Wow. And like really thinking about how a lot of them probably get stuck in that area of the kids come first in all
Mhm.
things, right? Every day. And I'm just thinking about my experience where that that was the case probably far too often, where my mother sacrificed in areas where she probably shouldn't have, just not even to give us what we needed, to give us what we wanted.
Right. Yeah.
Mm. And there's a line. I mean, married or not, there's a line, in my opinion, where children need to be taught, number one, the difference between a need and a want, right?
Hmm.
Uh, but I think somewhere on that line resides the area of also teaching the children why the parents come first.
Yeah, I think with all things, communication is needed. I mean, we want to teach this to our kids too,
Mm.
right? So they can have healthy marriages.
Right.
But also, I mean, a lot of that is, I mean, the kids are gonna want what they want. Obviously, their needs are what they need, and depending on their age, you know, the world does revolve around them, right? They
Yeah.
do get what they want when they say it. It comes to them. We're affirming them in every way. That type of stuff. It's not until they start hanging out with people outside of the family dynamic do they say, "Oh, people, different kids think differently. Not every kid's gonna like me." That type of stuff. Um, so as we're teaching, we have to teach them all of these things, and we have to model, not just with words, but model. Some kids do need more affirming verbally, but most kids they learn more just by observing. I mean, they have nothing else to do. Nothing is taking their mind. They're just watching everything and
Yeah.
soaking it all in. Um, so I think that is important, and I think it's important for us as parents and you know spouses that we remember that there is a line, like you said. When is too much as far as want and as far as stretching ourselves for them, that we make sure we keep a healthy boundary, really, for lack of a better term, or just the seriousness of it. Like, we have to have boundaries for our children to protect our marriage. Never thought about that before. And that sounds crazy to say out loud. What are your thoughts on that?
I think that is exactly right. What I was going to say as well is, I have admired your parenting style, and close to this top, well, exactly on this topic, and exactly what you were talking about. One of the things I really admired when I saw it in action is at nighttime, right? You had this scenario with your daughter where you're like, "Hey, listen, this is grown-ups time now," right? And she understood that, like, all right, well, it's time for me to be a little more quiet. It's time to let the adults talk and do their thing, right? Like, this is a time where I am uh exercising a privilege to still be out of bed at this moment, right?
Right. Right.
So I've sort of modeled that in our relationship. You know what I mean? I and I'm very structured with my kids on when they take their bath, when they go to bed, and at that time, like, it's a wrap. Like, there's no more. You're done. I'll see you in the morning.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
now, obviously, they're children, and there's going to be needs throughout the night, especially through like potty training and whatever the case may be. But I am very structured with the way I operate in that realm. But I think you're exactly right that you have to draw that line, be firm with it to protect your marriage. And like just think about it on the other hand. Like, if you are 100% putting the kids first, when do you have time to communicate? There needs to be adult conversation, whether they be, you know, argumentative, just serious topics, just talking about your day, right? Just being able to vent, right?
Mhm.
Th- You how do you make time for that if the kids are always coming first?
Yeah, there is no time, and any good parent is trying to figure out what each child can take for their age. So
Hmm.
you really can't have full adult conversations until they're becoming more like adults. So even the
Right.
conversations they observe, because they're going to ask you later, like, what does that mean? What does that say? You said this, blah, blah, blah. And like, you can't, one, stop your conversation when you're trying to have a conversation with your wife, um, to explain or to be like, oh, you didn't hear that or whatever people say about that. But just to know those things. So yeah, I mean, to be fully present, first of all, like you have to take time for yourselves so that you can be fully present for each other. And it might not, and that doesn't. I know we're talking about bedtime and stuff, but that's calls during the day. If you have the ability to carve out time and step away. Um, those who are stay-at-home parents don't always have that, when kids are no longer napping, right? So, but both spouses are working. Maybe it's a call on lunch or a call on a break. Maybe it's the drive home, the drive to. Um, those type of things can always help you stay connected, um,
Mhm.
and to make sure that you're connecting that way and putting your spouse and giving them time that we need.
Yeah. Yeah. That quality time, man. It's a necessity. And we're always trying to steal back some of our time. I'm being very methodical about that right now. I'm trying to buy back my time, or some of it at least,
Hmm.
so I can give more of it to my family. And on topic, give more of it to my wife, which I believe she's appreciative of, right? Um, and as we're talking, I'm trying to think about, like, what does it look like to really be putting each other first? What are your thoughts on that? Like, what are some of the things that you practice in your marriage to, I guess, yeah, like I said, just to put each other first,
Yeah, that's a good question.
or, or put your marriage first?
Right. Um, I think it's trying to at least check in at the end of the day. Um, be able to have that space for any conversations that need to happen, but also check in. Like at some point of the day, ask how your day was, or how is your day going, or what's going on,
Mhm.
um, and just leave it at that and let your spouse answer. Sometimes it may be short, or they may not be able to talk or whatever, or articulate what's going on. And sometimes it can be, 40-minute conversation, right? You just don't know. But giving that space, I think, is very important. That allows your spouse to feel seen and feel cared for. When people genuinely ask how you're doing, or how your week went, or how your day went, um, there's just something freeing in that, and
Mhm.
that's very important. um and then the all important date night, which I struggle with, even with all the tips from Damon, uh, from the
Yeah.
past episode. um I still We still struggle with carving out that time, honestly. I mean, we're not perfect in any way, shape, or form, and I don't ever want to put that off. So like, that is a struggle area for us, to kind of get away and do that. But I think communicating really is one thing that we do well, to make each other uh, come first. What do you practice, or what are your thoughts on that?
Staying united, and that could, you know, really turn up in a couple different ways. Off the top of my head, um, we sit down as a family for dinner, and the kids are like, "Why do we have to sit in this room?" Right? And we give them the same answer, right? and and we engage them actively, right? But if the kids are in trouble, we stay united in the reason that they're being punished. We stay united in you know, whatever the let's say, we're taking away an iPad for 2 days, right? One of us isn't giving in on that,
Hmm.
right? Make a decision and we keep a united front and make the result the same. So even though they might try, the kid's not gonna be able to run to one parent or another and
Right.
work to getting out of a punishment. Um, and just backing each other, right? And all things, right? And this is I think is maybe something I need to work on. Um, but let's just a scenario. Your wife comes home from work or has a complaint about work, right? Rather than just trying to be Mr. Fix It, right? Just listen. You know what I mean? And maybe even agree with her.
For sure. I've become really good at that.
There you go. I like that. But
But yeah.
yeah, I mean, I think that's number one for us is that we try to stay united. And I mean, a lot of communication has to happen in order for that to work. But I'll tell you what, man, when that works, it's lovely. It is lovely for your marriage.
Yeah, man. And I think just not even, like you said, being outside of parenting, but if you're on the same page and united with your friend groups, with your other, with family that isn't your kids, those type of things, that there's a there's just a bond that is there when you're like when you know that your spouse is going to be on the same page. And obviously that takes work to get there and conversations, but as you're growing as a unit, there's nothing like that feeling of being on the same page. And
Yeah.
I never thought about that, but that's really strong. So I would say, yeah, working towards being on the same page will definitely help you remember that your spouse comes first.
Mm, yeah. Especially when the kids try to challenge you.
Yeah.
Like, no, no, we're first, I promise you.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the kids will challenge, but also life scenarios, right?
Oh yeah.
Other people unintentionally, not like in a bad way, but just maybe trying to get your time, or get your resources of some sort. But when you're united, I mean, being united with your resources, time, money, any other assets you have is pretty nice too.
Yeah, that's key. Because we can spend our time all kinds of ways. And it's it's so easy to lose, right? And that's happened to me at my own peril, but it's also been my own fault to just freely give of myself to help others or do this or that. And I think far too often I've not completely considered my wife in those commitments. You know what I mean? So I believe I'm on the right track now.
Hmm.
Um, and you know, making your wife feel and know that she's first, man, if you can get that down, there's no stopping you.
Yeah, I think, like you said, just actively considering your wife, and showing her will give leaps and bounds. That would actually probably be the one of those things that how tos, like, really, even if it's if you're starting to try to figure this out, one of the things you can do is when you're any situation, you can say, obviously, what would I do? And then what would she do? Or what do I want? And what would she want? So kind of do a dual thought process. And then if you don't know, right, then that's a conversation starter. Like,
Yeah.
hey, I was something as silly as, hey, I was in the grocery store and I wanted to get some fruit for the house. Like, I know what I want, but if what's your top three favorite fruits? So if we ever need fruit in the house, I make sure, and I think about it for myself, I can get it for you.
Mhm.
Just right there, she feels seen, considered, thought about. Like, oh, he was thinking about me in the grocery store. Oh, he
Yeah.
wants to know what my favorite fruits are. Like those type of things. Oh, so that would be, an active step, I think, that can help you get there.
Yeah, I like it. I try to stay consistent with that. I work late nights sometimes, and every once in a while I get hungry, and on my way home, I'm like, you know what? I could really go for some wings right about now. But then my next thought is, I wonder if she would want anything. So I call her
Hmm.
and say, hey, I'm gonna get something from here. Would you like anything? You know, that's good. I like it. So we got to wrap up, but is there anything else you want to talk about as far as this topic is concerned? Or is there any overarching point you want to make?
I think just making sure you're striving to be healthy for yourself is the underlier, and that allows you to work toward showing your wife that you consider her in all things. And that is a way to make sure she feels like she comes first.
Hey, you got me thinking of something I could put on a t shirt. You too come first. I got to figure out how to write that out though. You, comma, two TWO come first. I don't know. I'll figure it out. I'll know when the shirts get released. Well,
We
hey, all right. Yeah. If y'all want to continue this conversation, hit us up on Instagram. We'll reply to your every single question over there. And if you have any topic suggestions, please feel free to reach out and let us know what you want us to talk about because we're here to serve you. And especially if you want to be a guest, please reach out. You can hit us on Instagram, Facebook, or the website.